Have you ever spent hours playing a game only to discover an entire mechanic that would have made everything 10 times easier? Well, Menace is exactly that kind of game. While most players are hyper-focused on just shooting and dodging, there is an entire system of hidden mechanics that the majority simply ignore or don't even realize exist. And look, I'm not talking about those obvious tips everyone already knows. I'm talking about mechanics that literally change the way you play. So, if you're stuck on a mission or simply want to truly master Menace, stick with me, because these 10 mechanics are going to make you completely rethink your strategy. Most treat vehicles as just heavy firing platforms, but using them as tactical transports with specific perks is a completely ignored layer that changes the pace of missions. When you put characters like Lim or Carta with a mobile infantry perk inside carriers, you aren't just moving units, you are creating rapid repositioning capability that allows for flanks and maneuvers that would be impossible on foot. The carrier moves 10 to 12 tiles in one turn, drops the armored squad in the enemy rear, and suddenly you've completely flipped the geometry of the fight. But almost no one does this, because everyone wants to use vehicles to shoot, not for tactical mobility. It's wasting the system's full potential. The genius part is that while inside the vehicle, the units gain its defense, you are basically moving an entire squad through dangerous territory with temporary armored protection. This turns risky advances into calculated maneuvers. Need to cross a kill zone? Load everyone in the carrier, cross with the armor absorbing the damage, and drop out the other side already in position to flank. It's especially devastating with mobile infantry because the AP cost to mount and dismount is reduced. So you don't lose the whole turn just moving. You move and still have AP to act. Excani specifically gives an additional defense bonus, turning the carrier into a mobile bunker that repositions full squads. The problem is that this is risky and counterintuitive, so the community simply doesn't experiment. What if my carrier explodes with everyone inside? Yes, it's a real risk. You're putting your eggs in one basket. But the strategic payoff of appearing on the enemy flank with a full squad 2 turns earlier than possible on foot, that turns games around completely. It's the kind of high-risk, high-reward play that separates average victories from dominant ones. You don't do this blindly, you do it when you have smoke to cover the advance, when the path is relatively clear, and when the element of surprise is worth the risk. The reality is that Menace gives you all these tools for mobility and tactical flexibility, but most stay stuck in that slow and methodical advance always mentality. Sometimes you need to be aggressive, take calculated risks, and use vehicles as maneuver tools rather than just firing platforms. Carriers with mobile infantry transform the map because you are no longer limited by infantry movement. You can reposition an entire squad 15 tiles in a turn and create situations the enemy cannot possibly answer. But this requires you to think of vehicles as multifunctional tactical pieces, not just tank shoots. Carrier shoots less. It's one more mechanic that remains invisible because it doesn't fit the conservative gameplay loop most have adopted. Carta is the perfect example of how Menace rewards patience and long-term vision, yet most players discard her at first glance because her starting stats are terrible compared to other characters. Everyone wants to start strong, picking those soldiers with 85 aim and 12 health from the get-go. But Carta is the opposite. She starts weak and clumsy, which leads 90% of the player base to not even consider using her. What these people don't realize is that Menace has a progression system where some characters have much higher growth ceilings than others, and Carta literally has the highest development potential in the entire game. It's the classic investment play. You accept some suffering early on in exchange for having an absolutely dominant unit later. The genius trick no one exploits is that her low supply cost allows you to equip her far above what would be fair for her level. While other similar tier soldiers cost 150 to 200 inches supply upkeep, Carta stays around 80 to 100 even after several upgrades. This means you can put elite gear on her heavy armor, top-tier weapons, expensive accessories, and still have plenty of TV budget left for the rest of the squad. She is literally a free elite once you pass the initial growth phase. You are paying common soldier prices to maintain a unit that has already surpassed expensive veterans in every relevant stat. The most frustrating part is seeing guides and tier lists put Carta in B or C tier because of bad base stats, as if the game ended at mission 5. Menace is a long campaign game where you will use the same units for 20 to 30 missions if you know what you're doing. And in that context, Carta is easily S tier. But modern gaming culture has no patience. Everyone wants immediate results, instant power, that dopaminergic gratification of seeing high numbers since the tutorial. Investing in Carta requires you to accept she will underperform in the first 4 to 5 missions, while others shine. But after that, the curve flips completely, and you have a war machine that costs half the upkeep of equivalent units. The secret is to run with her early and never let go. Invest and run with her forever. Isn't an exaggeration. It's literally the correct strategy. Every mission she completes, her stats grow more than normal characters would, and since maintenance costs stay low, you have infinite margin to upgrade gear. Eventually you reach a point where Carta is carrying gear that would cost 400 TV on any other soldier. But on her, it only costs 250 TV total because her base cost is ridiculously efficient. It's the kind of optimization that separates those who understand campaign economy from those who only look at single mission stats. But of course, that requires thinking beyond the next fight. And apparently, that's too much to ask from a community that only cares about tier lists based on who is strongest in mission 1. The stealth vision mechanic is one of those things the game doesn't explicitly explain in its UI. But once you finally understand how it works, it's like gaining a superpower. The formula, your vision, enemy concealment, your detection, basically defines how many tiles away you need to be to detect a hidden enemy. Most players simply ignore detection stats because they don't understand the brutal impact it has on combat, especially when facing enemies with high concealment in tall grass or dense forest. It's the kind of system that separates those playing on autopilot from those who truly master the game. What makes this devastating is how you can exploit this math to create impossible situations for the enemy. Darby, for example, with the Scout perk, has 11 vision and +2 detection. This means she can spot hidden enemies long before they have any chance to retaliate. While a standard soldier with 9 vision would only detect an enemy with 4 concealment from 5 tiles away, Darby can do it from 7 tiles. In practice, you are shooting at targets that literally don't know you exist. And if you move her after firing, the enemy will only investigate her old position. The problem is that most people treat concealment and detection as secondary stats when they actually define the entire pace of combat. A vehicle with -4 concealment can be spotted from 13 tiles away by normal enemies, while a well-equipped Darby with +6 concealment is only seen at 3 tiles. It's the difference between controlling the fight and being caught by surprise. When you maximize this on scouts like Darby, you turn the game into a one-sided shootout where you dictate every engagement. The genius twist is that even after shooting and being revealed, you vanish at the end of the turn if you keep your concealment high. This creates a vicious cycle where you fire, the enemy discovers your old position, you've already moved, and by the next turn, you're invisible again, attacking from another angle. It's a mechanic that rewards those who plan ambushes thinking not just about damage, but about geometry and positioning. Very few players exploit this because it doesn't seem obvious at first glance. But once you start building entire squads focused on maximizing vision and detection, you are literally playing a different game than the rest of the community. Smoke grenades are probably the most underrated item in the entire game, mostly because tactical gaming culture has trained everyone to think only about damage optimization. Most players equip flashbangs, frags, or EMPs because they directly kill or disable, but smoke? Oh, that's for beginners until you lose an entire squad because you had no way out of an ambush. What these people don't realize is that smoke isn't defensive, it's offensive in disguise. The mechanic is simple but brutal. If you throw smoke between yourself and the enemy, they literally cannot shoot at you unless you are marked by one of their scouts. It is a total line of sight block, not that half-baked system from other games where you just get a reduced hit chance. What makes this a game changer is its absurd versatility. Your best soldier took a critical hit and is exposed in the middle of the map. Smoke them, send another soldier to retrieve them, and you walk out of an impossible situation with 0 casualties. Need to cross an open area watched by 3 snipers? Chain smoke it and walk through calmly while they sit there waiting for you to appear. The craziest part is using it for CQC pushes you through smoke on the enemy's fortified position, run into the cloud, and when you pop out the other side, you're already 2 tiles away with a shotgun in hand. They can't react because you were invisible the whole time, and now they're trapped in a close quarters fight they didn't expect. It's the kind of play that completely turns the tables. The part that frustrates me most is seeing streamers and guides focus exclusively on max damage builds, equipping 3 different types of explosive grenades on the same character as if that were peak efficiency. Man, what's the point of having 200 potential damage if your whole squad dies before using half of it? Smoke saves entire squads because it completely negates the enemy's turn, and an enemy that can't act is as useful as a dead enemy, except you didn't spend expensive ammo to achieve it. It's the accessory that transforms chaotic retreats into controlled tactical maneuvers and allows you to force engagements on favorable terms even when outnumbered. The secret that separates average players from those who truly dominate Menace is understanding that information and vision control are more important than raw DPS. Smoke is literally the item that materializes this concept. You are stealing information from the opponent while keeping yours intact. Combine this with scouts who have high detection, and you create situations where you see everything and the enemy sees nothing, even if they have twice the units. But the community ignores this because it doesn't show up in the post-mission stats. It doesn't have that dopaminergic feedback of seeing big damage numbers. It's the difference between playing Menace like a generic XCOM and actually playing Menace the way the developers intended. The disposable launcher, DLAT, is one of those items you see in the shop, think it's only 100 TV. It must be weak. And ignore completely while building expensive, dedicated anti-tank setups. But the genius of this thing is that it doesn't take up your primary slot. You literally get a full assault rifle and a guaranteed anti-vehicle shot per mission. Most players only think about AT when building a heavy specialist who carries a massive launcher and loses all mobility. But the DLAT turns any assault into a hybrid that can deal with infantry normally and still disable a vehicle when necessary. It's the kind of flexibility that defines missions, especially in the early campaigns when you don't have the TV to build specialized squads. What makes this brutally efficient is the timing and the obscene cost-benefit ratio. For 100 TV, you can disable or completely destroy light vehicles and APCs that cost the enemy 300 to 500 TV. It doesn't have to be a one-shot kill. Just by taking the vehicle out of the fight for a few turns, you've already completely shifted the mission's balance. And since it's disposable, you aren't locked into that decision for the whole game. A mission with no vehicles, you've lost nothing because your main loadout is intact. An unexpected light tank appears, boom, problem solved, and your assault goes back to their normal job. The min-max obsessed community completely ignores this item because it doesn't fit into perfect spreadsheet builds. Everyone wants the soldier with the dedicated rocket launcher that does 400 damage, forgetting that this guy is dead weight in 60% of missions where heavy vehicles don't show up. The DLAT is the opposite. It's the Swiss Army knife that doesn't hinder your squad when not needed, but saves you when a scout car appears out of nowhere and starts dismantling your formation. It's the kind of gear that demonstrates tactical maturity. You aren't chasing theoretical max damage. You are preparing for variability and adaptation. The thing is, Menace heavily punishes those who go in with over-specialized squads, and the DLAT is the perfect answer to that. You put it on 2 or 3 assaults, spend 200 to 300 TV total, and suddenly your squad has distributed anti-vehicle capability without sacrificing anti-infantry firepower. Once you get the hang of using it, you start to realize how the people complaining about tanks being OP in the early game simply didn't understand the tools the game offers. For a fraction of the cost of a full AT specialist, you can negate light and medium vehicles while maintaining your team's total versatility. Full auto mode on rifles is one of those mechanics hidden in the action menu that most players simply never click because they've been conditioned by decades of XCOM to think a precise single shot is always superior. You spend 80 AP on a normal rifle or 40 on an SMG to unleash a spray of bullets, and everyone looks at it and thinks, wow, what a waste of ammo. I'd rather take 2 controlled shots. But what this mentality completely ignores is that full auto isn't about accuracy, it's about volume of fire suppression and area control. In close range, especially with characters like Crowbar who already have stats for close combat, you turn a rifle into practically an automatic shotgun that can hit multiple grouped enemies. It's a complete paradigm shift. You stop hunting for individual headshots and start thinking about how many enemies can I weaken or kill in this firing cone. The insight that separates average players from the good ones is understanding when to trade ammo efficiency for immediate tactical pressure. Full auto shines in specific situations that happen every mission. Enemies grouped behind cover, breaches in enclosed environments, or when you need to ensure a group of 3 to 4 enemy soldiers won't have a clean turn to act. The suppression caused by the volume of bullets is real. Even if you don't kill anyone, you forced all those enemies to reposition or make bad decisions. And when you do hit, man, seeing 3 enemies take simultaneous damage from a single 80 AP attack is incredibly more efficient than spending 120 AP on 2 single shots that only hit 1 target each. The problem is that the community is completely addicted to the high aim, high damage, single target mentality of classic tactical games. Everyone wants that sniper with a 95% hit chance doing 150 damage, but forgets that Menace frequently pits you against 8 to 10 enemies at once. Killing one perfectly doesn't solve the problem when the other 7 are still shooting at you. Full auto with Crowbar or any assault with a decent SMG is the answer to that you aren't trying to make the perfect play. You are trying to degrade the combat capability of multiple enemies quickly. It's the difference between playing for highlights and playing to win consistently. The truth is, full auto requires you to completely rethink positioning and timing. You don't use it from across the map, you use it when you are 4 to 6 tiles away, preferably at an angle that catches multiple targets, in moments where volume of fire matters more than surgical precision. Crowbar with an SMG on full auto in a closed room is basically a human blender, processing entire groups, while other characters would be taking 1 shot at a time. But this won't show up in the max damage per shot builds that dominate the community, so most don't even try it. It's yet another mechanic Menace offers to reward tactical creativity that remains invisible to those who just copy ready-made builds without understanding the context of real combat. The pin down mechanic is probably the most ignored survival tool in the game, and I bet half the player base doesn't even know it exists or how it properly works. When you use pin down on a nearby enemy, you literally zero out their vision temporarily. They sit there, disoriented, unable to make reaction shots or track movement. Most players who get into bad situations simply try to run away, taking Overwatch from 3 different enemies and losing the unit. But if you spend those extra AP to use pin down before retreating, you transform a suicidal withdrawal into a controlled tactical maneuver. It's the difference between my soldier died because I was greedy and I saved my soldier from an ambush because I understand the game's tools. What makes this absolutely critical is how Menace punishes careless movement near enemies. Unlike other tactical games where you can somewhat run away and hope RNG favors you, here reaction shots are brutal and consistent. Pin down is the perfect countermeasure. You are basically buying temporary immunity at the cost of some AP. And it's not even expensive. You use it, the enemy goes blind, you walk calmly to cover or behind your lines, and next turn, you handle the situation with your full squad instead of being a man down. It's especially devastating when you are outnumbered and need to regroup without taking losses. Pin down the closest enemies, pull everyone back, reform. The amount of wipes I see in streams and videos that could be avoided with pin down is frustrating. People advance too far, realize they are surrounded, panic, and try to sprint out while 3 enemies take free shots. Then comes the, man, this game is so RNG. I took 3 crits in a row. No, brother, you simply didn't use the tool the game gave you specifically for this situation. Pin down exists exactly to save you from surprise wipes when you've put yourself in a bad spot. It's not about never making positioning mistakes. It's about having the presence of mind to mitigate those mistakes instead of just accepting the disaster. The secret is to change your mindset. Pin down isn't an offensive skill. It's a control skill that allows for safe disengagement. Whenever you realize a soldier is overexposed or the situation has turned against you, the automatic thought should be, who do I need to pin down so I can retreat? This saves entire squads because you don't get stuck in that cycle of, I made a mistake, now I'm going to lose a unit, now I'm outnumbered, now I've lost the mission. You make the mistake, use pin down, retreat safely, reposition, and stay in the fight. But of course, that requires admitting you messed up and acting tactically instead of just hitting the dash button and praying. And apparently, for many people, it's easier to complain about RNG than to learn the game's defensive mechanics. The stealth icons on the Menace HUD are literally free information the game gives you all the time, yet many players simply don't look at them and later complain that I was detected out of nowhere. The system is crystal clear. A crossed out eye means you aren't being seen. No icon means you are completely exposed. And there's even the audio detail no one pays attention to. Squad leaders whisper when in stealth and speak in a normal voice when exposed. It's constant audio-visual feedback confirming your detection state. But people play on autopilot, move units without checking, and are then surprised when the perfect ambush plan turns into a chaotic firefight because someone walked 1 tile too far and was spotted. What kills me is that this is literally a 2-second check before confirming any movement. Moving your scout to an advanced position, look at the icon. Still got the crossed out eye? Great, you're still invisible, keep pushing. Icon gone, stop everything, because you just stepped into an enemy line of sight and moving further will blow your element of surprise completely. It's especially critical when setting up elaborate ambushes with multiple units. It only takes 1 unit being detected prematurely for the whole setup to go to hell. But instead of incorporating this quick check into the decision-making process, most treat it as optional and then blame the game for unfair detection. The frustrating part is that Menace already gives you all the tools to have total control over stealth, but it requires attention to detail. Combine the icon check with the concealment and vision system we discussed earlier, and you have complete information on who can see you, from where, and when. But that requires actually paying attention to what's happening instead of just clicking rapidly to end the turn. It's the difference between playing tactically, pausing, checking states, making informed decisions, and playing impulsively. Thinking speed is more important than precision. Menace harshly punishes the second approach. The thing is, this type of awareness completely separates players who master stealth from those who think stealth is luck or RNG. There is zero RNG involved. The game is telling you exactly whether you are detected or not through the icon and audio. If you ignore that and move without confirming, you weren't unlucky, you were careless. It's like driving without looking at the mirrors and then complaining you crashed. The information was right there, free, available, begging to be used. But incorporating this into the gameplay loop requires discipline and focus. And apparently, it's easier for people to complain about obscure mechanics than to simply look at the interface the game put there exactly to solve this problem. The technique of advancing tile by tile in stealth is one of those things that seems obvious when you read it, but in practice, almost no one has the discipline to execute it because it goes against all the efficiency instincts other games have taught you. The temptation is always to use all your available movement. You have 8 tiles of range, so you walk the 8 tiles at once, and boom, turn over. But in Menace, especially when operating in stealth, that is a tactical error. Moving hex by hex, always leaving enough AP to retreat in case you are detected or see something unexpected, completely transforms how you control the map. It's literally the difference between I walked into an ambush and lost my scout, and I saw the ambush 1 tile earlier, retreated, and repositioned to turn the situation around. What makes this devastating, when combined with superior vision, is that you create an absurd asymmetry of information. You advance 1 tile, confirm you're still in stealth via the icon, see if you revealed any new enemies with your improved vision, and make the call. Do I push further or pull back? With scouts like Darby who have superior detection range, you literally see enemies several tiles before they have any chance of detecting you. Every move becomes an informed decision rather than a blind commitment. You aren't hoping not to be seen. You know you aren't being seen, confirming it every step and only continuing when it's safe. This is a stealth squad turning into invisible assassins because you maintain total control over when and where the combat starts. The problem is that this is slow, methodical, and goes against modern gaming culture that rewards speed and aggression. No one wants to spend 30 seconds carefully moving a scout 4 tiles when they could throw them forward in 2 clicks and move to the next action. But this rushed mentality is exactly what causes those moments where your scout overextends, enters the line of sight of a hidden MG nest, and dies before they can react. If you had moved tile by tile, you would have seen the MG nest with a tile to spare, retreated, marked the position, and called in artillery or flanked. It's patience being rewarded with survival and complete tactical control. The truth is that stealth squads, played correctly with conservative movement, are practically invincible because you never enter combat at a disadvantage. You always see first, always have the option to retreat, always dictate the terms of engagement. But this requires you to completely rethink the game's pace. It's not about ending the turn fast. It's about ending the turn in the perfect position. 1 tile at a time, always with an escape route, always with AP to spare. It sounds paranoid, until you realize you never lose units to surprises anymore, because there are no surprises when you control every inch of your advance. Towers and elevated positions in Menace are a classic trap that catches everyone coming from other tactical games where high ground is always an advantage. Most players see a tower and think, I'll put my sniper up there to see everything, only to discover the hard way that you lose all concealment when you climb up. You literally become a lighthouse, signaling shoot me to the entire map. The game even makes sense logically. You're elevated, exposed, silhouetted against the sky, but it goes against decades of conditioning that height equals tactical superiority. In Menace, if you're playing stealth, towers are death traps that turn your carefully positioned sniper into a priority target that will soak up all enemy ammo. The trick almost no one uses is keeping snipers at ground level in positions with natural concealment like dense vegetation or ruins. You sacrifice a bit of absolute vision, but you keep the invisibility that is infinitely more valuable. A sniper hidden in tall grass with concealment 6 can take 3-4 shots before the enemy has any idea where the fire is coming from. A sniper at the top of a tower takes 1 shot and immediately becomes the focus of the whole map. The difference is brutal. In the first case, you are dictating the fight from a safe position. In the second, you are trading shots in a situation where you are the most obvious target on the battlefield. The part that frustrates me most is seeing people build these elaborate Overwatch and area control strategies using towers, not realizing they are basically turning their best units into expensive bait. Oh, but I have a better line of sight from the tower? Yes. And the enemy also has a better line of fire at you, and you have 0 concealment to mitigate that. You are literally saving enemy ammo by placing yourself as the easiest and most obvious target available. Meanwhile, the guy keeping the sniper hidden on the ground is forcing the enemy to spend AP searching, investigating, and wasting turns trying to locate the source of the fire. The secret is understanding that in Menace, invisibility is almost always worth more than increased vision. Towers have their place in specific situations, desperate defense, once stealth is already broken, or when you absolutely need that specific angle and accept the trade-off. But as a general rule for stealth gameplay, avoid them completely. Ground level, with good cover and high concealment, transforms snipers into ghosts who control the map without ever being located. But this requires you to abandon that I need to see everything all the time mentality and embrace the philosophy of if they don't see me, I've already won. It's another one of those situations where Menace rewards you for doing the opposite of what other tacticals taught you, but most lack the mental flexibility to unlearn old habits.